Right. Everybody good?
Yep.
Everybody excited? Oh, wait, I need to get some room tone again. Now we're ready. Hello, it's the Cineskinny. It is me, Peter, with Jamie.
Hello.
And Ellie.
Hello.
On this, the latest edition of the film podcast from the Skinny magazine. We have a busy one today. We don't have Anna Heat. She's not very well. So we send our love and kind regards. In case we don't want to be too informal, but
We should probably just send some drugs or something.
yeah, we could put like a packet of those like Lemsip capsules on the tram, just with a note that says "friend" on the side, and then see if they get there. So on this week's episode, we have 2 very good films to talk about. We also have some very bad news to talk about, and also some other bad news to talk about. So it's a bit of a mixed bag today, but there we go. So, Jamie, should we just go straight into the first bit of bad news?
Is it the bad news first, or do you want the bad news?
I think we'll have, you know what, I think we'll have the very bad news first. But we'll have the bad news local first.
Okay.
And then we'll save the other bad news till the end as a treat.
The global bad news.
I think the thing about the other bad news, not to belabor the point, but the other bad news, there is at least some kind of like glimmers of like there's something to remember and celebrate. I suppose that kind of is with the first bit of bad news. The first bit of bad news is unequivocally a bit of bad news.
The audience need to know what we're talking about. You're dragging this out.
They really do. I can't help it. I'm walking myself around in circles.
We'll be catastrophizing at home.
Thinking what else could have happened.
Castle Rock erupted last night, as you all know.
Yeah, Godzilla back, angry. No, we are going to talk about the closure of the Centre for Contemporary Arts, the CCA, in Glasgow. As Jamie wrote in a thing for the Skinny, one of the most important multi-arts venues in Scotland. It closed on the Friday before we recorded this, actually closed on print day, which gave me and Jamie a nice little fun bit of news to have to deal with. But yeah, just to read a little bit of what Jamie has written, which is on the Skinny website, and I'll stick it in the show notes as well. Basically, the staff were kind of told to come to a meeting on Friday where they were told that the venue was going to be closing with immediate effect, planning to go into liquidation. All kind of events, exhibitions and things that were planned to be on there are all cancelled. And it seems to be all over for now. I think it's quite a complex situation because Creative Scotland, I believe, own the building. So obviously first and foremost, thoughts are with the staff affected. The staff, all like the Unite members at the CCA put out a statement saying basically that they feel like they weren't given enough notice that this was going to happen, and that they feel like they're trying to keep the pressure on basically to make sure that they get things like their redundancy pay. They say in a statement that they did send to us, but we haven't published them. So reading it from Third Force News, the staff have worked tirelessly under sustained pressure to support the organisation in good faith, and at no point have wished for the CCA to close. The abrupt and impersonal announcement delivered remotely by acting trustees has caused immediate harm to staff's emotional, mental and financial well-being. And then they kind of go on to say later that they are deeply concerned about how the process is being handled. There's significant uncertainty around notice, pay, employment protections and access to HR and pastoral support. So, CCA is closed. The staff are all trying to keep the pressure on. As Jamie said in his article, the news is a huge loss to Glasgow's cultural community, but perhaps not a complete surprise. Do you want to quickly fill us in a bit on the backstory, and we can talk about how this relates to Scottish film? Because I think it's quite a complicated story, and I've seen some of our colleagues in the news media try to describe it in quite a reductive shitbag way over the weekend, so let's maybe put some info out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, if anybody's had half an eye on the CCA over the last, 5 years, certainly since the pandemic, there's certainly been something amiss there. You know, it feels like it has been a bit chaotically run, a bit of lack of leadership. The building's shut on a couple of occasions due to kind of financial difficulties. I think the first closure was 2024. I should have written all this down, but like it did close just before it got a reprieve by getting a 3.4 million bump from Creative Scotland as part of the multi-year funding package. But that's not been enough to save it. So there's definitely been issues financially. I've seen rumours that there's less than 10 grand in the bank of the organisation, so there's not enough money to pay everyone, which is kind of shocking. I think even just the fact that it ended so abruptly is shocking. An organisation shouldn't, if you're going to wind down an organisation because you're just running out of cash, there should be a better way to do this than doing it on one day where you shut the doors and lock your staff out and tell them it happens. So yeah, there's definitely been some sort of issues. There's been a lack of kind of leadership. They lost their previous director, Francis McGee, stepped down, and they've never replaced him. I think that was an issue. Despite the hard work from the staff who've kept the place running under these kind of tiring circumstances, yeah, it's not been enough. So it's just really sad, I think one of the issues is there's nowhere like the CCA in Glasgow. I think a lot of artists and festivals are kind of now a bit homeless without it. Despite its troubles, it still has been the kind of heart of Glasgow art civic life, I would say. Even in these turbulent years, it's one of the few places where there's a kind of open source policy in terms of the programming. So it means that if you're a theatre maker or an artist or a filmmaker, you can just put on a film, you can put on a show, you can put on an event for not very much money. You've got all the expertise that the CCA offers, all the kind of technical know-how. It's a great building in terms of the facilities there. If you're a film club, it's got DCP, it's got 35mm, it's got 60mm, it's got all these kind of facilities that there isn't really that many places outside it that can show cinema at that kind of high standard. So I'm talking it from a film point of view, but it was a multi-arts venue, and it was very important to a lot of different areas of Glasgow's art community. It was giving me a bit of flashback to the Film House suddenly closing and Summer Hall when it was having its tax issues, and and it reminded me that it took 2 years for the Film House to come back. And Summer Hall hasn't really been the same since it hasn't had quite the vibrant program it had before it sort of changed management. So I'm sure that the CCA will come back in some form, but the question is, how long is that going to take? How long are these people who have just been put out of work going to be out of work? Are they going to get any redundancies? Are they going to get is the place going to reopen to give them a job back? We don't really know that yet. So there's a lot of questions. There's not been sort of any kind of statement from Creative Scotland to own the building, whether they have plans to sort of bring it back in some sort of temporary form, or if they're going to restructure it, who's going to take over it. So it's all kind of up in the air right now. But yeah, it's really worrying, I think, for Glasgow. Like I say, there's so many festivals that rely on that space. I'm sure the Glasgow Short Film Festival are stressing right now. We're going to be using that space, and they'll probably have to be rethinking their programme right now. And I'm sure there's tons of others of artists and filmmakers who had work planned there, or who were hoping to use that space, who are going to have to kind of rethink. So yeah, it's just an amazing resource that Glasgow kind of needs, and it's really depressing that it's been sort of mismanaged and no one sort of could step in to stop this happening, which seems kind of, I don't want to say it was inevitable, but there's been signs that there's been trouble there for a long time. So all I can hope is that it kind of comes back in a kind of a stronger form, but like I say, it could take a long time, and there's no guarantee that we're going to get anything quite the same back. So
yeah, because you talked about GSFF, Squiff was a big Scottish Queer International Film Festival, was a big user of the CCA. We actually, the Cineskinny / the Skinny, have put on screenings there, and I think crucially that thing that it's very easy for things to get siloed off. And I think the thing about the CCA is it was a cinema that was also a theatre, that was also a gig venue, that was also a pub, a cafe, all these kind of things. And it represents that idea that all of these things, you can all these different things and enjoy all these different things, but actually it's probably a good idea for you to all bump into each other every so often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to admit that I hadn't really even been to the CCA before moving to Glasgow, but even in those last few years that I've been there, I wound up using it really regularly, not just because of like the really interesting events that people would put on and that we would put on, but you're right, it's because of the location and the facilities and the fact that it can kind of do a lot of different things, which there aren't lots of places like that, especially not that have that very kind of open source way of doing things. So it really feels that it's terrible for the staff that work there, and this huge sort of question of whether or not they're going to get the redundancy pay hanging over their head. But also I know that there were like regular people who organised things at the CCA. I think that's where you said Squiff. I think like Rebel Tango, who do the kind of like non-conventional tango lessons, and the Radical Seed Library, I think, work out of there. So it's just really interesting because you would think there'd be, it got to the point where like I went there for loads of things, sometimes just friends putting on films that they wanted to put on in the cinema space. So it seems like there was always like a real need for use. Like people do love the CCA and go regularly. So given its popularity with the art scene, given its location and its facilities, it's such a surprise that something like this could happen. It's really unfortunate and might be down to like, a combination of that trend of just like the decreasing funding of the Scottish cultural scene, but also just like mismanagement and kind of like silly mistakes that have been made. So hopefully it does come back, and I'm sure that it will, especially if the building's owned by Creative Scotland, right? Like it almost seems too valuable not to do something with.
Yeah,
but
so
it's just a shame for the time being.
Yeah, there was a Creative Scotland statement that came out where they basically said, among other things, that the CCA had the building on Sauchiehall Street from Creative Scotland on a kind of like token rent of £1 a year. So like Creative Scotland own the building, and they obviously are not, they have decided they're not going to give any more funds to the current CCA organisation, but they do say that they will explore future options alongside other partners with the shared aim of the centre reopening as a cultural resource as soon as is realistically possible. Now, crucially, that is not the same as reopening as it was before.
Yeah.
So I think it is one to keep an eye on. But yes, I think that Jamie is right that for our purposes as a Scottish film podcast, there is now a gap in where people can put on films where they can, and crucially where they can like find an audience.
I think there's also a key thing that there's also a space to gather. Like there are kind of spaces where you can maybe put on a film, but the CC also had this amazing courtyard, which was like such a meeting place for people, like especially when the cafe was there. But like you could put on an event, and the whole point is, for me, a big part of a festival is gathering with lots of people and to chat about the films you're seeing, and that's exactly what the CCA offered. Is you could go and watch a film upstairs or downstairs, and then you could go into the cafe and have a drink and talk about it, or wait there for your next film. So like it was like, it just felt really vibrant when stuff was on there. And obviously, like we say, things have went wrong, but it shouldn't be. Like it seems like fixable if we had some people in charge who sort of knew what they're doing. So like, I really hope that like Creative Scotland do not drag their feet with this and sort of work out some way of bringing it back, and sort of with some sort of, certainly with the community's needs in mind, because the community does need this place, and if they think of the community first when they reimagine it, I think we should have a better space than it has been the last few years. Yes, and I think also, I'll just say on Jamie's behalf, I don't think he's trying to pitch to run this place. It's like, if only we could find someone who would run this place properly. Well, I mean, I couldn't do any worse than the last shower. Okay, that's probably as good a place as any to stop this conversation. First good film of the week, The Secret Agent, the new film by Kleber Mendonça Filho, who made Bacurau a few years ago. The quite strange, but also quite fun. Bacurau is the one that is about like hunting the deadliest game of all, isn't it? Bacurau is the one film of his I haven't seen, actually. I can talk about all the other ones. But okay, would you like to talk about one of the other ones while I just double check that I'm talking about the correct film? Yeah, no, the Bacurau is definitely his film. My favourite film is probably his first film, Neighbouring Sounds, which was set around just this kind of really kind of creepy film set around a housing complex in Recife. Like all his films, I think, are set in Recife, which is his hometown. There was an amazing one called Aquarius, which is about a woman kind of holding out when I think the council were trying to buy her house or gangsters were trying to push her out. But yeah, it's like her kind of stand against these people who are trying to like push her out of her home, and she's got this amazing home, and it's about like how where you live is a really important a really important thing. So I think all his films are kind of really centered in a place. He clearly cares about his city and his hometown, and this film as well is a real kind of love letter to Recife. And he did make another film in between, which I think was called Pictures of Ghosts, which was a documentary about Recife as well, about the cinemas of Recife. So yeah, he's definitely a champion for this part of the world, and community, and just life is his main interest, I think.
Yeah, and he returns to the cinemas of Recife in this, The Secret Agent. Bacurau was about a group of people trying to hunt humans for sport in an isolated Brazilian village, with Udo Kier as the leader of the manhunters. Udo Kier is also in this. I'm not doing this in a very organised way. I'll do a brief plot synopsis for The Secret Agent. All the lights have gone off again. In The Secret Agent, Wagner Moura plays Armando / Marcelo. He is an academic who has basically hounded out of his role in academia by corrupt business interests affiliated with the Brazilian government of the 1970s, shall we say. Government of the 1970s, parentheses, bad. And he has gone on the run and is now in hiding and becomes involved in a network of kind of safe houses, people trying to protect people like him from persecution, hitmen, very charming old ladies, his father-in-law who works in a cinema as a cinema projectionist, his son who he is trying to manage his relationship with, and various other sundry people. One of the things about this film is it is not told in a straightforward linear order, and that it partially explains why it is quite why I'm struggling to get through this bit of explaining the basic plot machinations of this film. But Ellie, what did you think of the film? Do you think it's good? And can you tell me a little bit about it while I try and warm my hands on this radio?
Yeah, I loved it. So I think that part of the reason that you find it so hard to explain is that it is an incredibly sort of contrived conspiracy style plot. It's a story about stories and about kind of the power of stories, especially against quite disappointing, bleak real life. And it's pulling from all these sort of very gritty 70s crime capers. It's got this editing style that feels very 70s, just little things occasionally whenever two people have to have this informant phone call. There's this neat split screen and you see both sides of and it's very stylish, very 70s. And it's also set in the 70s in Recife when Jaws is in cinema, and it creates this great sort of sense of atmosphere where you just keep seeing posters and advertisements for the blockbusters of the time. And you get the sense that the kind of stories that people are consuming are kind of bleeding out into their everyday reality. It shows life in the Brazilian dictatorship in a really interesting way where, there's a lot of police corruption. At the first scene is he stops at a gas station where there's just a body rotting outside, and the guys phoned the police about it, but they don't do that. They don't actually, uphold the law or anything like that. They just roll up to pull out bribes from people. But paradoxically, everyone's just shagging out in the open. That's a pretty big part of the film, is that just every room you randomly walk into, you just walk into an unexpected sex scene.
Yeah, for a film about kind of corporate espionage and military dictatorship, a lot of scenes of people getting sucked off.
Yeah. It's a sort of, there's a weird kind of absurdist element to it, right? One plot point follows the police that seemingly has very little to do with the major conspiracy and the fight to end this dictatorship, where the police have discovered this human leg inside a shark's stomach contents. And obviously with Jaws being on people's mind, the newspapers go crazy with the story of a single hairy leg that's hopping around Recife, kicking the shit out of a bunch of cruisers. And then one character implies that this is obviously a media cover-up for homophobic police brutality, but the film shows us it as if it actually happens. It shows us the hairy leg bouncing around and then shows us the newspapers printing the story. So it's almost like all there is in this world is the telling of a story, right? We only sort of see this conspiracy unfold because there's tapes being listened to by 21st century modern day archivists who are kind of putting the story together with us. And that might explain the slightly weird, maybe top heavy narrative that unfolds. For example, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler to say, but like the kind of climax of the film is a big chase scene between two pretty minor characters. Like, it doesn't involve our main character, and his ending and like the fate of his son, who he's trying to like save and get to safety. They're told in quite like blunt, almost unexpected ways. And it's just, I don't know, like a really sort of, it leaves you with this strange sense of like how exactly stories tie together and how they, you know, come together in real life in very different ways than they come together in film. It's set against like this beautiful cinema, which I looked it up. I think it's the Cinema São Luís, which is like the last art house cinema in Brazil. And even, you know, aside from the fact that we do see people just like all watching The Omen or something like that, the Resistance are having their like meetings in the dingy little projectionist room, and it actually feels like there's something very magical about what's going on here. And with jumping about in time between the 70s and the 21st century, there's this sense that like the cinema, not even the films that people all come together to share, but the space of the cinema, even the site of the cinema, has some weird, fateful, unexpected ability to bring people together. So just a really interesting film where, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't following it very well because it is quite a dense plot, but there's this strange sense of magic, and there's this almost quite like funny, kind of unconventional way of telling the story. And also, yeah, sexy men with mustaches, and they've all got their shirts open. What more could you want?
And it looks amazing. I think you kind of alluded to this earlier. Like, it's got a really amazing, like, sun-bleached color palette. I think it does have that kind of, I've seen some reviews talk about this, has that kind of, like, 70s exploitation filter on everything. That's where all the mustaches come from. Mm-hmm. The mustaches and the slightly zipped down too low shots and stuff. I think it really is one of these kaleidoscopic type films because it sounds very serious, and then it's actually also quite funny. But then it's got a huge array of characters, and every character, no matter how small their part, feels very well cast. Like the little old lady who runs the lodging house, Tana Maria, who plays this character called Donna Sebastiana, is just like the perfect little old lady. In that she is a big mouth who is scared of no one and is constantly giving out at folk for them doing things wrong. And she also has a little boy a little man who she makes follow her around and do all her chores for her. Jamie, I know that you really like this one, so I'll let you tell us precisely how you did that.
I was going to say about Donna Sebastiana, or Tina Maria is the actor.
Tanya Maria is
the actor. Yeah, she's not an actor. She's like a seamstress who they just streetcast as well. So she's become like a real massive star in Brazil because of this film, I think. But this is the film. It's a film just full of amazing faces, like, you know, like not like beautiful people, but not like kind of Hollywood people, like just like real people, which you love. And it's like, yeah, you're right. The film is a bit unusual in the fact it takes you a while to work out what it's even about, because we don't even know this kind of meta plot until it's like almost like a twist. It's like must be like half an hour in at least before we find out that this is all flashback being listened to by people in the 21st century. So that's really interesting. But yeah, like it starts off, I think a really great scene that kind of sets the kind of mood. It's Wagner Mara's character arriving at this kind of like a dusty petrol station, and there's like a dead body there. And it's like really tense. The police turn up. The police have like blood on them. We don't know if the blood is like someone else's or if it's like the person who's dead. It's like very kind of sinister. And it just gives you the sense of like, this is a dangerous place. But then the film, so it sets up this kind of paranoid kind of thriller plot. But then you realise the film's also just about like community, like I said. So Wagner Moura's character arrives at this kind of halfway house run by this little lady who like clearly smokes like 40 cigarettes a day. And you find out there's all these other people here who are being persecuted by the dictatorship. So Wagner Moura's character, he's an academic who got on the bad side of the regime. There's some people who are being persecuted because there's politics. Some are like communists. Others are there because of their race. Others are there because of their sexuality. So it's a really kind of rich portrait of like these people coming together and kind of protecting each other against this barbaric regime under this kind of like, in this kind of safe house. So that's like a big part of the plot, is like meeting this community and like spending time with these people. And even the people who only spend a couple of minutes on screen, I feel like they've got a real kind of rich backstory, and you know a lot about them. And like you say, it's a very sexy film. He even finds time for like a little romance at this commune. The kid is so cute and funny as well. Like, I love his obsession with the Jaws. He hasn't actually seen Jaws because he's too young to see it, but he keeps drawing the poster over and over again. And then that ties in wonderfully with this kind of side plot about the hairy leg. And that's a true thing as well. Like, I was reading Clever Mendoza's interviews where he said, like, during the regime, the journalists weren't allowed to talk openly about like the military or the police and the kind of shit they're up to. So they did invent this hairy leg. So when the police go in and they do bash up all the people in the cruising areas who are having sex in the bushes and having fun, they can't report about that openly and say that it was police brutality. They have to say that there was this hairy leg jumping around town causing all this mischief, and that became code for people who lived in Recife who knew that when the newspapers were writing about this stuff, what the hairy leg referred to. So yeah, it's just a really layered film, like full of details, and like you say, like, it does have these holes in it, but that makes sense because you realise, this is, I mean, it's not a real story, but it imagines what it's like looking back at history through the lens of some people just picking up newspaper stories and these tape recordings and piecing the story together. So there are holes. And we don't have like a very, very satisfying ending because it's just like, I guess that's how archives work. Like, there are holes in the story and we don't quite know what happened, and there's like trails end, and nothing quite makes sense. But that to me didn't take away any of the film, because I found the film so entertaining, so beautifully put together. Like, the editing is fantastic. The needle drops are incredible. It really just, it is a love letter to the city, and this and it tells you so much about Brazil in this time period. Like, I hate watching period films which are kind of like feel the need to like spoon feed you information. Like, I didn't really know anything about the Brazilian dictatorship. You know, obviously we know a lot about other dictatorships in South America, but I feel like this one is not that well publicised. So just to know things like, for example, there was such a divide between the north and south of Brazil, and that all the money was getting siphoned off to like Sao Paulo and like Rio, whereas like a city like Recife was not receiving money, and that's why this city was sort of radical and sort of was in conflict with the regime because it was kind of being sort of pushed around. So that's all really interesting, but it's not like, doesn't ever feel like a lecture. It feels like a really amazing story that's unfolding before your eyes. So yeah, just a great film. This is definitely a film I think you should go and see in the cinema. It's a film that I think will be in my mind come the end of the year when I'm thinking of the best films of the year. Yeah, just a wonderful movie. Yeah,
it is very good. It is out on the 20th of February, and also it has a local tie-in. Unexpected local tie-in has just dropped because Wagner Moura, fresh from being nominated for Best Actor at the Oscars, is going to be at the Edinburgh International Festival this summer doing some Ibsen. He's going to be at the Lyceum. He's going to be round the corner from the office. Do you think we can get him on the podcast?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So we don't want to talk to you about Narcos at all. We only want to talk to you about The Secret Agent. So yeah, it's out on the 20th via Mubi. Ellie, out of 5. What do you reckon?
Oh, I'm going to say 4, but maybe 4.5.
Okay. Jamie.
Jamie's going to be bold. 5. This is an absolute banger. Like, this is proper. This is cinema, baby. This is like, this is a film that just does everything. Like, it's got great acting. It's got an amazing atmosphere. It's like full of like fun genre elements. It's got chase scenes. It's got hitmen. It's got sex scenes. It's like, yeah, it's got like CGI monster movie legs. It's got everything.
I think, for me, I think it was a 4-star because I just think that I feel like I might feel differently if I watched it again. Mm-hmm. But then it's a rare film in that it's 2 hours and 40 minutes and I want to watch it again. So it's a banger in my book. So this is The Secret Agent, and it is out 2 weeks on Friday, 20th. Okay. Second film of the week, and it's another fun one. This is Mary Bronstein's If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which is, as I've seen it described as many things, Safdie's-esque, uncut gems for motherhood, etc., etc. Rose Byrne plays Linda, who is a woman basically a woman who has been abandoned, I would say, by her husband, who is a kind of like, as I described to my partner what he was, she said, oh, like Captain Birdseye. He's like a traveling boat captain. So Linda's husband is away, so she is left looking after their daughter, who has this kind of like unspecified but quite severe like eating disorder and like issue with her weight and body. So Linda is trying to manage that. She is also a therapist with a, I would say, laundry list of problematic and troublesome clients. So she's also trying to deal with that. She has some professional run-ins with the other therapists in the office, so she's trying to deal with that. And above all else, there's an enormous hole in the ceiling. So she's out of the house and she's living in this kind of like down at heel motel with the daughter, with the machines to pump the like nutrient goo in overnight. No, like partner's away, can't get into the house, clients doing her head in, daughter doing her head in, all manner of stuff going on. It is a busy bit of business, Ellie, but also a very entertaining film, I thought. Sorry, I'm just loading up the list of people who are in it. So Rose Byrne leads, Conan O'Brien is the therapist, ASAP Rocky is the night porter at the motel, Christian Slater is the absentee, annoying shitbag husband, and director Mary Bronstein plays the doctor with whom Linda has multiple run-ins about her trials and tribulations in trying to get her daughter back on track. One of the things that I'm going to lead in with, and I've seen a lot of people make this point, like in a Safdie Brothers film, in an Uncut Gems, or a Marty Supreme, the lead character is constantly making bad decisions that then compound upon each other. But in this film, I feel like Rose Byrne's character often doesn't have much of a choice and is often actually making the correct choice. It's just not working. And she's doing her best and actually making, in a lot of cases, like the correct decision in under extreme pressure. But then the world and the people around her just refuse to acknowledge that that is the correct decision. But yeah, what do you think?
Loved it. Had a panic attack. Phenomenal. So a really interesting film. Like you say, so we've kind of been discussing in cinema postnatal, like trauma, burnout, and mental illness. Most recently with Die My Love by Lynn Ramsey, which is a film that seemed so special because you seem to extract a weird amount of satisfaction from watching Jennifer Lawrence just do whatever the fuck she wanted, even though she is like a recent mother and there's all these expectations put on her and she's very much out of line with that. This is very different in that it's not about a mother who does whatever she wants. It's about a mother who has to do everything for everyone. And kind of like you say, Peter, like it's not even clear if there is anything that she wants anymore. She's almost completely, at the beginning of the film, resigned to just this cycle of solving other people's problems and shouldering all the responsibility. And that's what brings it a lot closer to that kind of like anxiety-inducing cinema that the Safdie brothers and Sean Price Williams have kind of become known for. And yeah, the kind of like a very interesting world of this film is that, you know, to kind of, you know, show to the audience how having like a high demand child can completely take over your world. Everyone in this world is a high demand child. Like that's kind of how it works. The therapists, the patients, the child welfare professionals, the parking attendants outside the children's hospitals, they all have a stick up their arse. They all want you to just like do the thing they want you to do, whether or not you can or are dealing with an actual emergency.
Some of the people in this film needed a punch so hard. They were begging for it.
Well, it's funny because, like, you know, that is sort of the world we're in. That's the kind of spine of the film. There's some interesting symbols throughout. Like, there's a recurring thing with rodents. There's a recurring motif of holes. And the set pieces themselves, like these long scenes where, you know, the character just has to solve a problem, but nothing is cooperating. Everyone is just getting in your face about something completely unimportant. And they're quite dreamlike in a sense. They're always sort of shot with Rose Byrne's face really close up, quite claustrophobic. and everyone's just acting in this like accusatory and unhelpful way, so much more unhelpful than anyone would be in real life in an actual emergency. So it's a really like, you know, that's sort of so consistent and dense a tone. It's interesting to even consider it a black comedy, because you have all these comedic actors. You've got Conan O'Brien, but he's not really doing anything Conan O'Brien-y. He just plays this therapist who sits there, and when she's like pouring her heart out, she's like, yeah, and like, he's just the worst therapist ever. And Ivy Wolk is like the receptionist at the hotel. She's in Honora as the owner, the employee at the sweet shop who just lets the billionaire like trash the place. And it's like, she's doing the same thing here. She plays like this completely absent employee who just does not give a shit about her job, and she's just terrible. So, and like you say, even characters who are kind of meant to be in the same boat as Rose Byrne, like the father of the child and the child themselves, who presumably all have as much of a priority in you know, overcoming this kind of like medical condition, they're deliberately kept out of the peripheral of the film. The father's always away, and the daughter is never, her face is never revealed to the camera. So you're only left with the people who kind of like have no stake in this and kind of just have this annoying, disinterested attitude. And it's interesting. I felt kind of ambivalent about it, to be honest. I really liked Rose Byrne's performance. I think it's an incredibly impressive thing that she's already kind of like clawing up the walls at the beginning of the film, and she sustains this like frenetic, desperate performance all the way throughout. She even says, I think at one point, like one of the first things she says in the film is that she visualizes time like it's the edge of a cliff you're running towards, but just before you jump, you realize there's another cliff after it, and you just need to keep running over and over again. And the film kind of uses that as a keystone, right? Like, the problems are never solved. Nothing is ever kind of like satisfied. And I don't know, like, while on one hand, I really appreciate that they use that kind of, yeah, they're deliberately like invoking the frustration of the audience. It's meant to make you feel anxiety induced and trapped. The film sort of doesn't really have anywhere to go because it's as bad at the beginning as it is at the end. You know, and that kind of like cycle is an important theme, but I just wasn't necessarily impressed with it. I think it's really impressive for Rose Byrne to do a performance where she is, you know, giving this kind of desperation the whole way through, but it's a little less impressive to write a script where all of the characters are just the same. They are just complaining at the audience. So there's, you know, these frustrating elements that are really well put together and I really admire, but then there's other things that are making me feel frustrated, but not in a satisfying way. So a bit of middle of the road for me. I wasn't having a good time. That doesn't mean that it's bad, but there's good and bad elements to it.
Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Like, I kind of like being, I love cringe comedy. I love being in awkward situations. I love seeing people get exasperated. It's funny you say that Rose Byrne's character, like, she's doing the right things. I think she's doing the wrong thing. I think she's actually a horrible person in lots of ways. And she's
okay, like all the drinking. Fair enough. All the drinking and the child, child abandonment. Come on.
Yeah, but like, who would blame her with she has this like self-medicating a little bit. But yeah, she makes a lot of mistakes in this film, and I think a lot of the anxiety that she's causing is also brought on by herself, which is really interesting. Like, it doesn't shy away from like she's making mistakes as well, and quite often making wrong choices, I felt. But that's okay. I don't think the film judges her. I think the film like really sympathizes with this woman, because it's like literally you're with her all the way. Like, it's a film where it makes you feel her anxiety. You're right in her grill, like you said. Like, everything's in the periphery. You get this annoying kid off like, this kid, his voice, I cannot express to you how annoying it is. Like, it's like her whining, her complaining. You know, not happy that there's cheese on the pizza and things like that. And Rose Byrne just like getting more and more gritting her teeth. The beeping of her machine, and it's like the sound of it like malfunctioning, and like the food not getting in, and like the going off in the middle of the night. Like, that is driving her crazy. And there's like a real kind of body horror thing going on as well. Like, with this kind of, like, there's a moment where she pulls out, she just gets sick of the tube. And there is a kind of idea that she thinks actually the tube is what's causing the problem. The fact that she's not kind of like just getting on with it, and like she wants to take her off this kind of machine, and Rose Byrne pulls it out at some point, like, very, again, ill advised, but like we can see how she got to that point. So like, I feel we're really on her side, even though she is awful and making mistakes. And I felt there was a kind of it did kind of reach a moment of kind of grace towards the end, and a bit of catharsis. But yeah, like I just enjoyed watching Rose Byrne, because I think she's like so underrated. Like, she's such a good actor. Obviously, I think she tried to be like a kind of starlet, like in the kind of like start of her career. You know, she's in things like X-Men, First Class, and stuff like that. And she didn't really make an impression. And then she does Bridesmaids, and you realize, oh my god, this woman is like a comic genius. And I've just loved her in any comedy role since. And now she's here showing that she can be very funny, but also like go to these really dark, like pits of despair. Yeah, I loved her. Also, like, interesting, you're saying like the Safdie brothers. Like, Mary Bronstein is married to Ronald Bronstein, who I think writes and edits pretty much all of the Safdie brothers films. So there's definitely a connection. But I think, in a way, it's actually quite nice to see a Safdie brothers type plot where the anxiety grows, but it's all about domestic issues. You know, it's not about a dickhead who's into crime or has kind of grand delusions. It's like literally someone who's just trying to get through the day, but unfortunately they have a job and they have a sick kid, and you know, they're surrounded by arseholes. And it's like, how do you navigate that? And that to me was really satisfying to see that kind of extreme kind of cinema applied to just every day, and turning that kind of like lifestyle into like a thriller. Like, just how like every day is a struggle, you know. Like, I totally empathized with Rose Byrne's character through all her nightmare moments, and I recognize myself when I react badly to people, and probably react with anger and frustration when actually there's a better course of action. So yeah, I love this. 2 thumbs up for me.
And I'm going to, you know what, just for the sake of being contrary, I'm going to stand by what I said earlier. She does nothing wrong. I mean, like I say, the child abandonment aside, and maybe some of the stuff with trying to buy drugs on the dark web, but...
There's this funny sort of loop that's happening where, as point out, like, her patients in therapy are all walking red flags. Like, they're all creepy and codependent, and they all just say stuff that's incredibly ominous. But she, their therapist, is sitting there like, yeah, whatever. Much like Conan O'Brien, because she's so fatigued from, like, caring for her daughter. But then she goes through to Conan O'Brien and she's like, I love you, why are you mad at me?
But this is one of the best jokes in the film. They really delay the fact that she's a psychiatrist to, like, again, it's like, it's a really great joke, they delay, and it's probably a shame to ruin it, but like, when I found out what her job was, I was on the floor roaring. It was like so funny that this person who's so ill-equipped to like even handle her own life is giving people advice on how to handle theirs. Like, she's like how could she be a therapist? She's like so dysfunctional. But yeah, that's part of the fun. So.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed it. I thought, like, it's the kind of comedy I like, where it's extremely intense. There's loads of swearing. People won't stop shouting at each other, and the only outright, like, some of the few out and out design for a laugh moments are based in really just horrible things happening to people who definitely don't deserve it.
There's also a kind of lynching thing going on. Like, this hole in the ceiling is very mysterious, and there is a kind of proper jump scare, I think, in the film. It does seem to be almost moving into kind of psychological thriller at points as well. Like, it is a kind of slippery film in that way. But yeah, I'd say that's another one I would love to see with an audience. I did watch with an audience, but like I think the anxiety would be is enhanced by like sort of having people around you.
Yeah, it's a film that has a lot to it, and it's a film that's quite like that. You kind of, in a sense, have to see it to really understand what it is. So numbers aside, I would say that's a pretty good endorsement to be like, you are not like, there is no amount of us telling you that could prepare you for some of the patter that's going on here. But anyway, we'll tell you the numbers anyway. Ellie, what do you think out of 5?
I really like this type of movie, and I really admire the topic that it's exploring, but there was something that wasn't working for me there. I think I'm going to give it 3 stars.
Okie dokie, Jamie?
I'm going to 4. I think I'm Team Rose Byrne to win the Oscar. Sorry, Jessie Buckley, but yeah, Rose is great in this. And yeah, I think this is great. I'll recommend it.
I also think it's great. I also think it is a 4-star film. And I haven't seen Hamnet, so I can't join Jamie on the anti-Jessie Buckley train just yet.
I also like Jessie, but Rose Byrne for me. Rose Byrne's like doing a harder job. It's kind of similar, like a mother's like going through hell, but like it's probably harder to do it in like the register that Rose Byrne's going through, because she managed to be funny and heartbreaking all at once, whereas Jessie Buckley just goes for the heartbreaking.
There were fewer brick walls to run through at full speed in Hamlet in Shakespeare's time than there are in the modern day. So that was If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. It is also out on the 20th of February. And finally for this week, we would be remiss if we didn't pay a tribute to the late, great Catherine O'Hara, who passed away last week. The star of, I would say, a surprising range of things. You know, when you look back on someone's career and you think, they were in that, and that. And I feel like the kind of person who everybody has a different favourite performance from across her career, which included the Beetlejuice films, the Home Alone films, some of the best Christopher Guest mockumentaries, including Waiting for Government and Best in Show. She also did a lot of voice work. She was in The Night Before Christmas, and some other Tim Burton stuff as well. And then, of course, she had a kind of comeback in Schitt's Creek as Moira Rose. She was in The Studio, I believe. She was in Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry Sanders, a bunch of other TV stuff. Yes, a very, 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 Jamie, very funny person. With lots of funny range. Like, it's one thing to be funny in one way, but I feel like she was able to be, like, funny in a number of different ways. Describe one of them, and then leave another one for Ellie.
Oh, she's very funny in lots of ways. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of, like guest appearances and stuff on stuff. She came from, like, Second City. So improvisation was definitely one of her strengths, but she also, like, takes it to quite surreal places. Like, I feel like she, like, gets quite strange, and, like, she doesn't really worry about like reality. Like, if, for example, Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek, that character does not exist in the same world as anybody else in that show. Like, where's her accent come from? Like, why is everybody else, like, kind of normal, but she's, like, insane? Like, she could be insane, and it didn't kind of burst the kind of reality of the show, because she...
Just to jump in very quickly with a crazy statement, Catherine O'Hara walked so Matt Berry could run.
Exactly. She was very funny. I think I was just going to say, like, I feel like this feels like it's hitting people very hardly, especially from my kind of age range, because I think a lot of us grew up with Catherine O'Hara in films like you said, Beetlejuice and Kevin's Mom, and Home Alone. So, like, she felt like part of the furniture, and then, like you say, she had this kind of late career comeback as Moira Rose, and that for me was, like, such an important show during lockdown. Like, I feel like, yeah, she really kind of helped me through lockdown. I don't know, I feel like a lot of people have that feeling, and that's maybe why it feels so tragic, because it feels like we hadn't really seen the best of her almost. Like, even though she's been great since the 70s, like, been so many good things, I feel like she was just getting started, you know, like, because she's in the studio, she's also in The Last of Us doing a really kind of great dramatic role. So, like, maybe that's why it feels all the more heartbreaking. It feels like, oh, I've just seen, like, quite how great she is, even though, like, she's obviously great in all the Christopher Guest stuff, but she's very much an ensemble there. But she feels like she really became, like, a star properly in the last kind of 5 years, like, really late in her career. So that's maybe why this is quite painful for everyone, I think.
Ellie, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, a very similar experience. Like, Schitt's Creek was super important during lockdown. But, of course, like, I grew up with her in all of these sort of, like, really well-known, like, family favourite films. But, yeah, she does have a sort of strange imprint on animated cinema as a voice actor that you pointed out, Peter. Like, I found out one of her first film credits was a voice role on the, like, cult 80s sci-fi animated film Rock and Roll with, like, Debbie Harry and Iggy Pop and stuff like that. She had cameos in these, like, more off-the-wall animated blockbusters from the 2000s, like Monster House and Frankenweenie. But for me, like, probably her most influential role was a film that I saw all the time as a kid, which was The Nightmare Before Christmas. She plays Sally, the zombie that falls apart. And that's, like, for such a kind of, like, surreal and vivid film, and quite a, you know, like, fun, gothy film. It has this incredibly, you know, emotional through line. And she brings such, like, a sensitivity and fragility to that character. I almost, like, for the longest time didn't even put together that this was Moira Rose, because, like, it's a weirdly non-comedic role for her. So she's great, like you say, at kind of the dramatic chops, but I do think ultimately she will be remembered for just being incredibly fucking funny. Like, from everything, like, she does lots of different shades of funny. In Beetlejuice, she's this bizarre, pretentious battle axe of a woman. In Home Alone, she's this like hysterical mother. And then by the time of Schitt's Creek, you can see that she's sort of firing all of those cylinders at once, and also saying funny words like bebe or David.
Yeah, and she like, I think that, yeah, it's this improv background, I feel like, probably leads you into some of the characterization in Schitt's Creek, and also like some of the things that she does in those Christopher Guest films. Like Best in Show, the whole thing of so in Best in Show, she's part of a couple who have this really nice terrier, and they're taking it to this dog show. It's her and Eugene Levy. They do, I would say, painfully funny send-off song for the dog, and then her character is basically that she is married to Eugene Levy and they have this dog, but also that she was like a big time player back in the day and is constantly just bumping into people that she's hooked up with. And she walks the dog, and he sits on the sidelines because he, in a classic bit of comedy hijinks, literally has two left feet. She injures herself doing the kind of the earlier rounds of the big dog show, and the walk that she does to symbolize being injured is one of the maddest bits of physical comedy that you will ever see, because it's this thing of being so completely committed to something that if you took like 70% off, it would still be funny, and it looks like she's genuinely injuring herself in the process of doing it. It's so good. And like Waiting for Guffman is a Christopher Guest one that doesn't get as much run as some of the other ones, like Spinal Tap and stuff. I think partly because it is dated quite poorly, and that the central character is a flamboyant gay man played by Christopher Guest, and that's essentially the joke. But she is also brilliant in that, married in a couple in that one with Fred Willard. They do more painfully bad singing. They have brilliant like matching tracksuits. It's just like she's very able to like embody these completely wild characters and I think she has that thing that like really good comic actors have, where she makes you believe that something is genuinely happening for just long enough. Like, a lot of these things are very, very absurd, and she's clearly a very, very good actor, because like the performance in Home Alone, if nothing else, is just like a very, like, it's quite a layered, like, well-constructed performance. And she uses the layered, well-constructed performance to lure you into a false sense of security, and then start making weird Moira Rose-isms, or like doing some of the worst song and dancing you've ever seen in your life. So yeah, shouts out to a real one. Yeah, it is.
Will be missed. She
will be much missed by all. Have you got anything else to add, Jimmy?
I was going to say, I did watch Best of Show at the weekend, but I also just coincidentally watched After Hours like a few weeks ago as well, and I kind of forgot she was in it. This is before she passed away. And yeah, she's so good in that as well. Like, she's like, well, I don't know if you've not seen After Hours, Griffin Dunne plays a guy who goes down to Soho to get laid, but then he just ends up with these kind of different adventures and meets different women. And the last woman he meets is, I think she's called Gail, who's played by Catherine O'Hara. She's a ice cream salesperson. But she describes herself as Mr. Softy. And he says, "Oh, you mean you drive, Mr. Softy?" "No, I'm Mr. Softy." Anyway, she's insane, clearly. And she like just antagonizes this guy who's at the end of his rope. But anyway, it ends up she like leads a mob of people to kill him. Like she's just like the devil incarnate in that film. But like so entertaining, and like really stands out and amongst a great kind of cast of like 80s stars. So yeah, like I'm amazed I kind of forgot she's in it, but yeah, seeing her again, she really holds that film together, and yeah, she's very funny.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much of her improv, but I did just read on her Wikipedia page that apparently she was in a few episodes of the UK version of Whose Line Is It Anyway, way back in the 90s. I'm like, I need to find those.
Someone will have put those on YouTube,
Exactly.
surely. Well, yes. Shouts out to Catherine O'Hara. She will be missed. Go and watch all those films that we've just talked about, because they're all very good.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
We will be back I think that's probably us for today, actually. Before I just start telling people we'll be back in 2 weeks, I'll tell them we're done first, so they don't get confused. We're done. This podcast's over. We'll be back in 2 weeks. I think we're doing Glasgow Film Festival in 2 weeks.
We are, yeah.
Right? Yes, cool. So we need to organise some films to watch for that. But it's a good old programme. Jamie's actually written a top 10 for the Skinny magazine for the new issue that is out this week. And actually, the one that's on the website is the top 11 because, as Jamie jokingly pointed out, it is now tradition that the number of things in the initial copy should never be the same as the number of things in the headline. So we've kept that tradition up. Jamie was looking at me.
No, it's also like quite often I've said it's a top 10 and it actually only has 9 or it has 11. So we just got rid of one this time. I'm very bad at counting.
And then you message me and you're like, you can put the one that's left over back in. Just change the headline. Anyway, we're getting too deep in the weeds on this one. We'll be back in 2 weeks with some stuff from Glasgow Film Festival. And we hope you get better soon. Listeners, if you've enjoyed this podcast, tell people. We'll be back in a fortnight. See you later. Bye.
Bye.